starting the recording.
Great. Welcome, everybody. We're really glad you're here. This is one of our favorite topics, I think, mainly because we are both coaches and we're super passionate about coaching and how that supports people. And we love to share this tool with others. The topic today, coaching, building self-efficacy, creativity, and accountability. Many of you submitted questions. We're going to deal with those in the end. And for now, as we're going through the content, if questions come up for you, I'm going to invite you to just go ahead and pop them in the chat. And we will also be taking questions as we go along.
Yes.
So, Sasha, last week we really talked a lot about moving from expert status to being someone who uses less command and control and really focuses on empowering and unleashing the skills, strengths, and talents, the agency, so to speak, the people around you. And so why don't you lead us off with this week's content?
Yeah, so I know some of you were able to join us last week for shifting from being the expert to the empowerer. And if you remember, the key to empowerment is taking yourself out of the role of having to have all the answers and be the expert for your team. So asking questions such as what might be your next step are a starting point for that. But if you want to really bring out their creativity and resourcefulness, you're going to want to go deeper. And coaching is the key to that. Beth, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just that coaching for us, as I said, it's one of our primary tools that we use. We train, we do training, we work with managers, we work with organizations to really use navigating challenging dialogue, which is our core foundational process, through a coaching lens to build up and support people. So, no, I think I'm good, Sasha.
Okay, so let's just dive in. So I want to say, I feel like I say it all the time, but we're going to say it over and over again because repetition is one of the ways people learn. So what coaching is not, it is not advice giving. Okay, it is not, telling them what their approach to something ought to be. It is not giving them the answer. It is not telling them stories about how you've approached the thing in the past. It is, those are fine, and there's a time for those things, but they have no place in a coaching conversation. A coaching conversation assumes that all the answers are on the other side of the table, inside of the person that you want to coach.
Yes.
Beth, do you want to expand on that?
Well, I believe that when we are getting ready to engage in a coaching conversation or a coaching relationship with someone, there's a real important orientation that you have to bring to the table, a belief almost. And that is the belief that the person you're going to be working with actually has potential. One of the questions we get all the time is, how do I work with folks who, aren't motivated, don't have the skills and talents it takes to do the job, people that I just don't see any reason to invest in them, and I don't feel like they are invested either. How do I coach them? And my thinking on that, and something that Sasha and I talked about quite a bit, is if you're in that place where you see no spark, no light, no belief system in the person around you, if you're someone who shows up in a coaching relationship and you look at that person, you see nothing that you can work with, I'm going to ask you to go inside and do an assessment on kind of where you're at in your leadership role. Are you burnt out? Is this an absolute wrong fit for you? If you cannot engage with curiosity and find one single thing to have a spark of potential in the people that are around you that you're leading, you aren't leading them. You are now manipulating them. You're trying to get them to do things. You're using command and control. And that is a short-term gain for a ton of effort. And so I invite you to go back really far and have a cup of coffee, have a conversation, and be curious about what lights them up, what interests them, why do they show up at work every day? Just human to human, person to person, and find that piece of potential. Otherwise, you're not leading or you have someone on your team that doesn't belong there, and that's not a coaching deal.
So I want to build a little on that, Beth. So, I think you said something very important. And what I want to say is that part of your job as a leader is to bring out that potential in people and see that potential in people. And what I have seen from my long career are leaders that wish their staff was something else. They wish there were other people. They have these performance projects where they, try to correct people into being what they want them to be, right? They use it as a corrective process to try to change people into people who do things the way they want them to do them. Or they think like, I got to get rid of these layabouts, I got to get myself some people who are on fire. I got to get myself some different people. Or the thought era of, they should be able to do this. They should behave this way. They should already know or have this approach or whatever. These are all the kind of thinking errors that truncate your ability to really bring out the potential in another person. So I invite you to look at yourself very carefully and to see, are you trying to force people to be something other than what they are for some limited end? Or are you really, in the role of bringing out the best, the genius, the creative energy of other people, because that is a sacred thing to do.
Yes.
You can turn leadership into a sacred pursuit by bringing these things to the table and leaving behind the need to control people, mold people, shape people, or exit people out because you think they are not the right people. They are the right people. It's your challenge to see what is wonderful about them.
Yes. In horseback riding, when you're trying to bring your horse along, when you're trying to work with them, when you want them to show up in a certain way and you want to get them from here to there, you have to ride the horse that's underneath you. In that moment, you can't ride the horse that you hope they will be. It's the exact same with people. It's the same with our kids. It's the same with our partners and spouses. And it's the same with our employees. You need to work with the person who's in front of you. And so we're going to talk a lot about trust and how trust is a really key component of a foundational component. It has to be present, even if it's only a tiny bit of trust, even if it's only situational, in the coaching conversation, in the coaching relationship. And so if you're coming into the room and in your back of your head, you're going, there is nothing here, but I'm going to give it the old, best effort I got to coach this person, that is not where you can begin. No.
Okay, so let's talk about what coaching actually is. Okay.
Yeah, I love this
so this is it. Coaching is a permission-based conversation.
Yes.
The people in the conversation are equals, and the goal of the conversation is growth or change, or growth and change. The coachee has to be on board with this. They have to be willing to grow, to change, and to take ownership for the path they're on. That is the essential thing the coachee needs to bring. And without that, you cannot really have a coaching conversation. This is what about.
I want to question you about something you said, because I think it could be heard in a couple different ways. I heard you say the coach and the coachee are equals. Explain what you mean by that.
Hang on a second. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, you went out a minute ago, but you're back.
Sorry about that. I'm having some technical problems on this end, which hopefully my Amazon delivery is going to solve this afternoon. But I digress. So, meaning when I say a relationship of equals, what I really mean is I'm not talking about the hierarchy of the organization. What I'm talking about is that when you're coaching somebody, you're coming into the conversation knowing that you are not the person with the answers, that the person on the other side of the conversation is resourceful, has, you know, the ability to solve their own problems and to approach the problem from their own resources, that you do not have to, you aren't coming in with mastery, you are not coming in with all the answers, you're not coming in as the teacher, you're coming in as a curious learner. You bring this out by asking open-ended questions and getting the coachee to look deeper. That's your role, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not to provide the answers, which puts you, at, higher in the higher than them. This is where you're equal. You're curious about what they have to think, what they believe, what their solution is.
And coaching is agendaless, meaning I don't come in with my agenda of what I want the other person to get out of it. It can be about a topic, it can be about a theme, it can be about something very specific, but it isn't, I'm not driving an agenda. I'm not trying to get something. So I'm not going to coach someone on my board of directors in the hopes that they will understand a certain perspective or do a certain thing. That's a conversation. It's not
That's
a
a
coach.
different conversation. Yeah, but it's
Right?
not coaching.
There are opportunities for that. There's times when that's appropriate, but that is not this. So I just want to make sure that people are clear on that. It's one of the, I don't want to say mistakes of coaching, but I want to say it's one of the temptations.
Yeah.
And people know, they always know, they're always suspect when you are not showing up authentically to help them come into their power, to develop their best answers, to use their thinking. They always know that. They can tell when you are trying to get them somewhere, when you're trying to drive them to an aha. It's not for you to know what their aha is going to be. And when you can stay out of that, that is when the magic of coaching happens. And I would say 9 times out of 10, what they hit upon when you can stay out of their way is more aligned with them, more empowering, and sometimes way more valuable than the original thought you as the coach might have shown up with. It's such an opportunity to be in some unbelievable magic around human potential and capacity.
Yeah. So, why does coaching even work? Why do we have so much faith in this model? So, if you go back to the adult learner model, adults thrive when they're able to act independently, when they're able to exercise agency. This way they get to use their talents, their experience, the skills they already have, the skills they want to develop. This is a way to bring out deep engagement of everything that is inside of another person. So when your employees are able to come up with their own solutions and commit to them, their accountability is far stronger.
Yes.
Than if you simply task them to do something the way you insist that they do it.
Yeah.
And you're giving them permission to explore problems in their own way, which enables them to rely on their accumulated experience and innate creativity. You're developing that person's genius in this way.
And it builds upon each other. We talk about self-efficacy in terms of one of the outcomes of coaching. And self-efficacy, for folks who aren't really familiar with it, or you think you know what it is or whatever, I'll share how I define it. Self-efficacy is the idea that if I believe today that I could go out and jog a quarter mile, and I go out and do that quarter mile, then I begin to believe that, oh, tomorrow or in a few days or next week, it is possible for me to jog further, to jog longer, to do better at this. But if I got out this morning because somebody was rah-rah-rahing me and saying, hey, Beth, you can absolutely jog 3 miles. You can do it. I know you can. You're strong enough. You can do it. Da, da, da. And I go out and do it because they said I could. And I struggle and I'm miserable and maybe I do it, but it's a horrible experience. I'm not building self-efficacy. I'm building the understanding that I can suffer through doing something because someone else said I could. So what we're always trying to build in our employees, in our team, in our staff, the people we care about, we're always trying to build their self-efficacy, which is the belief that if I could do some, I can continue to grow and I can definitely do more. And that's an intrinsic internal knowledge. It's not external. It's internal to me. When you have a staff that is operating from that perspective and that standpoint, they're going to be able to show up not only when you're in the room, not only when you're present, not only when you're guiding them and mentoring them and directing them, but they're going to be able to show up when you're not.
Right. So this is one of the things that I've said in the past to clients when they talk about their staff needing more self-confidence. You know, and I can tell that they're just like saying, you can do it. I believe in you. And
It's a party.
And I always tell them to knock it off, to stop focusing on self-confidence, because preparation trumps self-confidence every day.
Yes.
People know when there's a skill gap. People know themselves. They know where they are with their learning. And instead of just saying, you can do it is far more powerful to ask, how can I support you in taking the next step? How can I support you in, you know, crossing this divide? I see that you're here and this is where, you know, where you need to get. How can I support you going there? And they, you know, that may be what they need, but just saying, oh, you can do it, you know, because that assumes that like there's this level that everybody's at, you know, and that they are magically on that level if they just believe enough. You know, I am a dedicated lifelong learner, and so I know about the skill gap. I know the skill gap very well, and I have found, you know, over time that it is far more useful to look at where the gaps are and to work with the gaps than to try to give a person a false sense of self-confidence to believe they can do something they haven't adequately prepared for. Mm-hmm. Preparation is key. Yeah. Coaching can get you to helping people with those gaps, but not if you just try to stuff it with self-confidence.
Mm-hmm. So Sasha, do we just want to talk a minute for a second, because I know this is one of the things that really comes up for people, is coaching questions, right? So I was at a social distance, very social distance with some close people. We had a little birthday celebration, and a woman said, oh, I just love to coach people. I love to sit them down. I love to tell them exactly how I did things and what I know and how they can get there. I'm such a good coach. And because, you know, wasn't my place to have that dialogue, I didn't jump into it. But I think it brings us to the importance of the coaching questions themselves, and what is a coaching question and what's just mining for data, mining for information.
Oh, yeah. So I would say that there's two elements that make a coaching question a quality one, a quality coaching question. One is that the question is always for the benefit of the other person, right? If you're pumping another person for information because you're fascinated by or you're titillated by whatever it is that they're telling you, like the time they met Mick Jagger because they were a roadie for, their one of their many comeback tours, that is not a great foundation for a coaching question, because the question is helping satisfy your need to be satisfied and to learn something, right, about that person. That is not a coaching question. The coaching question is when you help them look at themselves. The questions are open-ended, so they cannot easily be answered by yes or no. And they're not questions that track to a conclusion. Talking about earlier about, like, you know, things having an agenda or a goal attached to them, in the same spirit, the question does not have a preconceived right or wrong answer. It is not yes or no. It is not right or not a right or wrong answer. It is an open-ended question where anything could come out of it. So that's two things. It's for their benefit, and it's a question that could be answered in any way. It does not have an agenda or a goal in and of itself, other than to look under the hood.
And the way for me that I develop my coaching questions, people do trainings with us all the time. They're like, can you send us a list of your coaching questions? It would be a really short list, because the way that I come up with coaching questions is I'm listening. I'm listening with my head. I'm listening with my heart. I'm listening with my whole body, and I'm noticing what the person says that hooks my interest. What I'm curious about. What's an emotional word? What's a blocking word? Like, oh, I could never do that. Oh, that's fascinating. Say more about that.
Why do you believe that?
Yeah. Tell me about a time when you actually did do that. Has there ever been a time? Have you ever seen someone do that and see how it went? Those types of questions. So people are going to tell you a big, huge, long story. You're going to begin with what's the story of the day? What's on your mind? What do you want to discuss? They're going to tell you a big, long story. And your temptation when you begin coaching is to develop a very complex and poignant question about that. That's going to like set everything free, right? In regard to the whole entire story. You're probably also going to be having a lot of thoughts about what they should do, what you would do if you were them, what you'd like to see them do, what you know somebody else did. And you're going to feel that angst inside of you to share all that, right? Mm-hmm. Because we talked about in the expert webinar from last week, and we put the replay, the link to all the replays of all these free webinars in the chat room. It's ncdsolution.com/managing. You can get all the replays. But we talked about why our first reaction is to say, I've got an answer for you. Because we want to be the expert. We actually get a chemical hit in our brain when we get to be the smartest one in the room. And coaching is not about being the smartest one in the room. It's not about that. So you want your questions to be curious, simple, short. You just want to lay them down and let them sit. And understand that the person might have a response right away, or they might need to process for a little while, or their answer, they might talk about all kinds of things, and you're like, I wonder why they're not answering my question, right? But they might be going through their process to get there. And so coaching is very much about not being the most active participant in the conversation.
Right. It's also exhausting to try to hold all those things yourself. hold like what you would do, what the answer should be, what the goal is, are they engaged enough, all that. If you find yourself at the end of a coaching conversation feeling tired, like you want to take a nap, you are working way too hard. It's really just about asking one of those good coaching questions and just letting it sit there and let them do with it what they will.
Yes.
You don't have to work so hard.
Yes.
So Beth, should we talk about some of the what needs to be present for coaching to
Yeah,
work?
let's go into that.
Let's do it. So we have a few things that that we look to make sure that we're staying on track as coaches. So, and we talked about it before. There has to be a desire and willingness on the part of the coachee to grow, change, and take ownership for their own path. That is foundational. We also spoke of how we have to believe that the person is capable, that they are capable of finding their own solutions, that they have the right knowledge, or that they at least have access to the knowledge to resolve their own problems, that they have their inner resourcefulness to bear on the problem. Now, getting a little further into this is there needs to be trust. This needs to be a trust relationship. There may not have been a lot of time between you two to build a foundation of trust. So if you're going to coach a person and they give you permission, they are lending you trust. They are lending you their trust for the conversation. So it is on you to create an environment where they feel safe, where they feel they can say, you know, put whatever they need to on the table, and that it will be treated with humanity. Um, it requires a degree of vulnerability on your part too, because if this is a relationship of equals for the conversation, empathy for what the coachee is going through is so important. To be able to put yourself in their shoes, to be able to have an understanding of what they're going through, not to, you know, put them in the, oh, poor you situation, but to just have a feeling for the difficulty or the challenge itself without dismissing it, minimizing it, making it into a disability for them. That's another way to look at it, to say like, oh, well, you couldn't possibly do it. This is just too hard. You know, that's not empathy. So no, having that feeling in yourself and that they can see it is vulnerability.
Yeah.
Um, giving them your presence, you
Can
know,
I say one
being,
thing about
oh,
trust before we jump up?
yes, you can.
Thank you. I just want to say this. When you are engaged in a coaching conversation with someone, be clear about the level of confidentiality that they can anticipate based
Yes.
on that. So
Yeah.
if you create a trusting environment, you do a coaching conversation with someone, they reveal to you that they have a skill gap, they have a challenge with another person in the organization that they have a hard time working with, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is. And then you go and tell someone about that, or you bring it up in a meeting when they're present. Well, yes, Deborah, I mean, I know this is a tough task for you because you told me in that coaching session that you have a hard time with these kinds of things, right? You're not gonna, you're done. Coaching's over if you breach that confidentiality. I always let folks know, because we're coaching outside the organization into an organization, that if somebody reveals something in the coaching session that does harm financially, legally, um, you know, on an HR perspective to the organization, then I will need to have a conversation about that. But other than that, everything we talk about is between us, unless they expressly give me permission to talk to their manager in regard to the content. That
Yes.
and so I want to be clear with that with the people I'm coaching, and because you're never you're going to be all done in terms of a coach if you breach that, if they have an expectation of trust and confidentiality and then you break that.
Right. Yeah. That is so important. It is. what is said in the room stays in the room. You do not share it out, unless it is like what Beth mentioned, a case where people could be harmed, where something illegal is happening, etc. Those are exceptions, but otherwise, you got to keep it to yourself,
Yeah.
100%. So I was about to start talking about presence, and it should go without saying that when you're in a coaching conversation with someone, that is the only place you should be. Do not do online shopping. Do not browse Facebook. Do not take other phone calls. Do not open the door to other people unless the building is burning down. That's an exception, but otherwise, they have your full attention. They are the ones talking. Yes, they are the ones talking. They are the ones talking, and you are the one listening. You should be saying not very much and listening with curiosity and attention. Beth, do you have anything you want to add to that? Pretty basic.
I even to the point of taking notes. I don't take very many notes, only because for me, when I'm in a coaching conversation, I want to give some of my full attention. I may jot down words that are interesting to me or that catch my attention that I might want to circle back to later to make an inquiry about the use of them or phrases. But I'm not scribbling down all kinds of notes. You don't need them. You don't need them in a coaching conversation. People are working out their thoughts. They're working out what their next action step is. You might want to record the action step if you're in a managerial coaching situation so that you can have another coaching conversation about how it went, what did you learn, what was interesting about it, what might you do differently next time. But other than that, don't be like hiding behind your notepad, typing everything down. Be fully present.
Yes. Yes. And the last ingredient is permission.
Yeah.
Coaching is 100% permission based. So when you are engaging in a coaching conversation, you cannot do it in secret. You have to ask them to say, would you be open to some coaching? To
Yeah.
simply open that way. And so Beth, there's this little fine line, right? We always emphasize asking curious questions.
Right.
And I think it's one thing to ask a curious question to clarify something, to have better understanding. But when you start to go into coaching, I think you need to ask for permission. It's not just a matter of asking a single curious question.
Exactly. Because coaching is always about the person being coached, their desire to grow, change, do things in new ways. It's always about that. So if you go into a coach, it's fine to ask curious questions. Are you interested in exploring some options to do this differently? Is this I heard you talk about this. Is this an area you're interested in growing in? Oh, yeah, I really am. Oh, that's wonderful. Would you like some coaching around that? Would you like to participate in coaching? But coaching is never, I can't say this enough, a covert secret agent operation, right? Like, hey, you know what? So-and-so's struggling with this. Maybe you could just like do some of your magic little coaching and get her to show up differently on the team. Okay, yeah, I'll grab her at the water cooler and I'll do a little sneaky coaching conversation and then she'll see the value of changing and take action to do that. Coaching is not covert. It's not secret agent. That's manipulation.
Yeah.
That is manipulative and it does not build trust. Because at some point the person's going to go, "Hey, wait a minute. Are you trying to get me to do something different? Like what's behind this? What's happening?" Or they're just going to walk away going, "Oh, that was yucky." Yeah. So just say, "Hey, are you interested in some coaching on this?" If they say, "No, thanks," you got your answer.
You're all done.
We're all done. If it needs to be a performance question evaluation, if it needs to be a PIP, if it needs to be, managing, directing, those are different things. But coaching, if someone says no, coaching's over. You can say, okay, let me know if you change your mind.
Yeah.
And they may circle back.
Yeah. But that's basically it, Beth. We have covered all the points of coaching.
Yeah.
And so basically, in a nutshell, the way to bring out another person's creativity, self-efficacy, and genius is by allowing them to come up with their own answers and helping them by asking really good questions in coaching conversations.
Yeah. Okay, so we got some questions, and I don't.
Yes, we do. I've got them right here.
Okay, cool, because mine is so tiny I can't read them. Great.
Well, I'm going to use the magical Expando. It's not
And
called
people can
Expando.
post, if you have more questions, you can post them in the chat. If you don't want everyone to read your question, if you want to be a little, less public about that, you can, instead of everyone, you can hit the Sasha or Beth button and you can pop the question over to us directly and we can read it.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Ready for the first one?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
I'm
What's
ready.
the best way to coach team members with passive aggressive behavior?
I'm curious. For me, I go to curiosity on this one. How do you know their behavior is truly passive aggressive? Is that something you've identified? Is that a label that you've put on that behavior? And so it sounds to me that prior to coaching, because you have an opinion about how they're showing up, prior to coaching, there needs to be a conversation, some curious questions about when we're engaged in X, what I notice is you show up in this way. Can you say more about that?
Yeah.
Right? If you say to someone, hey, it feels to me like you're showing up passive aggressively, then I'm pretty certain the reaction you're going to get back is going to be like, no, I'm not, like defensive mode, right? Or you're wrong. And your conversation isn't going to be about moving them forward in their skills and talents, in their internal expertise and strengths. The conversation is going to be about who's right and who's wrong. Have you misidentified them? I mean, take a minute right now and just close your eyes if you're not driving or doing something that requires you see. And just sit for a minute and ask yourself that question. Hey Beth, are you being passive aggressive? And notice what you feel in your body when you hear that question, right? It's not really, I'm willing to bet it's not a desire to connect. It's not a desire to engage. It's not about trust. It's not about building relationship. And so starting from that premise is a really challenging place to begin a coaching conversation. Also, I'd be really prepared to do your own work around what do you see as this person's potential? What do you see? To put what you're labeling as passive aggressive aside for right now and really look for where you see their strengths and talents, where you see the bright spots, no matter how hard it might feel in this moment, because you are when you label someone as passive aggressive, to me that means that's what you are seeing, and your brain is probably going to look at everything they do through the lens of what passive aggressive means to you, right?
Yes.
So our brain is always seeking evidence that our stories are true, that our stories are true. So I'm going to invite you to do the shifting and play with that to see how it shows up. And when you see the behaviors that you're labeling as passive aggressive, Just do a gentle inquiry. Hey, I noticed this, and I'm wondering if you can help me understand what was happening or what it means for you.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I'll just say it out, say it out loud. If you start labeling people as passive aggressive, I would say that it sounds like you've allowed a number of incidents to accumulate
Mm-hmm.
without actually looking into what they are. It is far more comfortable to exercise bias, labeling somebody as being a particular way, than it is to actually look at these incidents with curiosity and say, can you help me understand what happened when that happened?
And
And,
I want
and
to be really clear to the person who asked this question and to everybody on this call. This does not mean you are bad. Does not mean you are flawed. Does not mean you are less than. It means that you are human. And our brain loves to take in stimuli, put a label on it, categorize it, because that's how we deal with things. That's what bias is. That's what we do. We want to categorize and label things so they make sense to us. The work of effective leadership and the work of coaching is to be able to go, oh, that's fascinating. I'm labeling her or him or they as passive aggressive, which means and my brain wants to give me a pathway to immediately discount them without becoming curious, without building relationship, right? And you may say, but you know what? I bake them cupcakes. I write them little notes. I do da 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 da. I believe you. I honestly believe you that you have tried all those kind of workarounds that we are told should make someone show up for us, should make someone endear themselves to us, should make someone respect us. And I'm going to give you a whole new way, which is simply to say, hey, I'm really curious. I notice this behavior and I don't understand what's happening when that comes up, and I'm wondering if you could explain it to me.
okay. All right. So shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I love that question.
That's a good question. How do you approach coaching for a peer that you do not supervise?
Same way, same exact
Same
way.
way.
I mean, with the so remember, coaching is permission based, right? So my assumption, this is where what I want to ask though, is why do you want to approach coaching with them? Do you see something in them that you wish was different? Do you see something in them that you think should be different? Do you have a skill or talent that you believe they could benefit from? So that's the beginning conversation, right? Hey, Bob, I noticed when you're leading the meeting, it seems like to me, from where I sit, there's like a little hesitancy to allow people in the room to have enough time to share information. What are your thoughts on that? And is it something you'd like to work on? Because I'm happy to do some coaching with you around that if that's something you'd like to engage in. Right? I mean, Sasha, you might be
Right.
able to put it in better language than I am right off the cuff, but coaching's always enough.
Well, I would say that it is, these coaching conversations with people who don't report to you. I would like to say that coaching, it doesn't have to be for someone that reports to you. It
Right.
can be for even somebody that you report to. You can report to. It's for their benefit. So if there's something they say that they're curious about, perhaps they express a difficulty. or they're a need that they need to do something. Like, there is something that they've put out there. You can say,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's fascinating. Are you interested in some coaching on that? And just to throw it out there and to see if they're open to it. It is not just for the people who report to you. You can coach a number of people, but it's always permission based. Do not force coaching on people who do not want to be coached.
Yeah.
That's
When
it in
you
a nutshell.
when you first learn to coach, when you first really learn it and you see the magic of it, the temptation is like you're sitting at the gate at the airport and you see some people having a dialogue or somebody trying to get their plane ticket changed or whatever, and you're like, ooh, I'd love to do some coaching with that person, right? You like see opportunity everywhere for
Oh,
coaching. That's not your job.
yeah, definitely. Do not coach people you meet in the airport. Or do. Just ask permission first.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one. Should coaching be scheduled or spontaneous or both?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Sometimes coaching can be the approach to coaching can be super simple. Hey, I'm struggling with completing this task. Can you lend me a hand? Yeah, and then you could just ask some coaching questions around their roadblock and it can be 5 minutes and off they go. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be a formalized schedule, sit down, last 40 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested in learning how to coach upward a manager who is not my direct report. Um, I have to coach her without knowing her
Without
knowing.
her knowing.
Oh, without her knowing.
Secret
Oh,
agent coach.
secret agent
Agent.
coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So I think that, what we were talking about is that you can't really do it in secret. This is a permission based thing.
Yeah.
Um, I am curious why you would, I am curious why it would need to be in secret
Right.
and why you want to coach them. That I think that is more the more interesting question.
I'd like to coach you on that.
Yeah.
Um, no, seriously. I mean, be clear. We're not laughing at you because we've all gone through these questions ourselves in terms of wanting to coach people covertly, feeling like we should. Somebody says, "Hey, seems like you got some coaching skills. Can you, make that person show up differently?" All of those things. But if you're attempting to coach someone and you feel like you have to coach them without them knowing, you need to do some work around that because we need to be able to speak our truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if another person on your leadership team or whatever, or another board member asks you to coach this person, um, you need to say to the person who's asking you to do the coaching, you know, I'd be happy to engage in a coaching conversation with them if it's permission based, and if you want me to do that, you need to speak with them and ask them if they want that opportunity. Um, I'm asking you to do some digging and some self-reflection around the statement, I have to coach her without her knowing. Why? What is holding you back from being truthful and honest with this person? And yeah, that's it.
So there's also one of the frameworks from NCD is the question that you ask yourself is like, is this something that needs to be said?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that needs to be said by me?
Mm-hmm.
And is it something that needs to be said by me right now?
Yeah.
Right. And if not now, when?
Right.
Um,
If you're trying to protect, if you're like, okay, thanks, Sasha, because that helped me think of another twist on this. So if you're wanting to coach this person without them knowing because you're wanting to save them, you're wanting to save them from themselves, you want to save them from the consequences of their behavior, and they've not asked for that, and you've not expressly offered it as an option for them, you're in the wrong business, doing the wrong thing.
Okay. So we have somebody who asks, say, tips for new managers. I would say attend every single one of these webinars.
They're free.
They are free.
The link is here. You can listen to everyone. You can listen to the Q&A. You can download the worksheets that we send out after, or the handouts that we send out after. This is like a gold mine for new managers. Have your new managers go through these. We also have a 18-minute NCD primer that's free for anybody. That's on our website, that anybody can take it. I would put that, if I'm trying to create a culture where people are empowered, where people are learning how to talk to each other and speak their truth with integrity and empathy and clarity and reduce drama and chaos, I would have every new employee take that 18-minute workshop. There's also a longer one. That's a paid one. I personally would include that for all my employees as well. I mean, those things are gold for people in all parts of their life.
Absolutely. Okay. What are some in-the-moment indicators that your coaching approach is effective?
You always want to get out of your own head and pay attention to the person's body language. Pay attention to their level of engagement, their eye contact. Are they processing the question? I'd start there. I'd start looking to the person for indication. And you can also, hey, I got an idea. You could ask, how is this going for you? I do that. If I am curious, if I'm in a coaching session with someone and I'm not sure if they're getting anything out of it, because sometimes it's so hard to tell, I'll say, how is this landing for you? How is this lining up with what you're hoping to learn about yourself? How are you doing right now? And then believe them when they tell you.
So this is one of the most genius things about coaching, is that no matter how messy things seem in the coaching conversation, and you're like, ugh, that went absolutely nowhere. The fact of the matter is, this is long tail stuff. You may not see the effects of your coaching ever. Yeah. Or they'll come back to you like in a year and say, you know, that conversation was pivotal for me. You know, based on what we talked about, I took this action. I dropped this waste of time. I had that conversation I needed to have. You know, I dealt with this relationship. You know, you may not get to see the outcome. One of the things we ask for in our coach training is like, ask for accountability for if there's any action to be taken. But honestly, it's all up to them, whether they tell you or not. You gave them the coaching conversation, and the rest is all 100% on their side, period.
So often when organizations want to make change fast, or an individual leader wants to make change fast, or see their blind spots or figuring out what they're missing, they'll have Sasha and I work with them, both of us together, in a kind of a VIP coaching session that's very intensive. And we did one of those not too long ago. And when we got done, we were like, nothing. I don't think anything happened, right? We even went across the street to the restaurant at the hotel and had a drink to talk about. Like, it didn't feel good. I'm not sure what happened. And so about a week later, the person scheduled an appointment with me. And I was a little nervous because I wasn't sure. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what they got out of it. I'm not sure what's going to happen. And when I answered the phone, he's like, you changed my world. And I'm like, oh, thank you. We didn't change your world. You changed your world. But I, I didn't tell the party that I just had no idea what happened for them. And so then we debriefed it through some coaching. What happened for you? What did you use? What are you doing differently? What showed up? And the connections that were made internally went far deeper than anything that we could know, because the person you're coaching is the only one who knows the whole story. You know what they tell you, but they know the whole story. So just keep that in mind.
We just have a couple minutes left and we have one more
Okay.
question. So
Very
let's try to do it. Okay. What are some tools I can use to hold remote workforce accountable for the work they're supposed to deliver?
mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would say absolutely 100% go back through the previous sessions that we did. There's some on accountability, and not next week. Next week's session is on creating a coaching culture, but the week after that, it's going to be on measurements and accountability. Is that the top? Is that measurements?
It's measure what matters, which is a way to connect people to organizational goals and to measure success
Yeah,
um, through a lens of NCD.
yeah. So for your coaching conversation, the way you're going to be able to hold them accountable is because you're going to ask for accountability at the end. So what action do you believe you will take? What do you think your next step might be, and by when, right? And then the trick is to not put the onus on you to run around and check, particularly if you're someone with a team of 6, 8, 10, 12 people, and you're doing coaching conversations with people. You can't, I don't want you creating a spreadsheet of everything you get to check with people on and then running around to see if they do it. Part of empowering people is for them to let you know, and how will you let me know your progress? How will you let me know what you have done with this? Oh, I'll send you an email. Oh, I'll tell you in our next session. Oh, you'll know because that report, completed report, will be on your desk in a week. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Beth, that's it.
That's what we got. We didn't get any questions from the audience.
Let me take a quick look just to make sure I am not missing anything. Nope. No, nothing is in chat. So that is a wrap.
That's a wrap. Well, we love doing these sessions. We love having all of you on here. Go to ncdsolution.com/managing to find the replay. You'll also get the replay emailed to you at some point. You can register for next week's session, creating a coaching culture. You can register for that right now on the ncdsolution.com/managing. And you know, we'd love to be in contact with you. So support@bethlunson.com with any questions or feedback you have. And we will see you next week. Thanks so
Swell.
much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.